Welcome. This is just Jeremy here in our space of love. I'm going to do this episode a little different today. I want to show you what I think sovereignty looks like. And this is what it looks like this is how we do it, not necessarily how you should do it or how, other people do it. But I know the term tends to invoke, sovereignty as a movement tends to invoke the idea of status correction and paper that you send, different things that you send off to the government, and maybe riding around with no license plates or all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that. We are wading through some of that sort of material ourselves and enacting some of those processes ourselves. But that's not ultimately what sovereignty is. If you're still living on a grid in a city somewhere claiming yourself to be free, you're not. And again, I'm not saying that from a judging place. I'm saying that from a literal, if you can't produce food and you don't have, control of your water supply and things like that, you're not sovereign. And all of these things, even with our homestead, is it going to stop a tank from rolling up my driveway or a drone swarm from rolling up on us? No, it isn't. It isn't. But I think a big part of it starts with mindset and definitely getting off the grid and into nature. And it has been like straight monsooning around here, so I haven't been able to get out and do it, but we got a break in the weather and here we are. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch things around and let you guys see what we do, or I will show you what we do, but I'm going to start with where we started. And so our journey began in Chicago, and it really began with a series of books called The Ringing Cedars of Russia. I've talked about them before, but as far as a complete spiritual text goes, I really haven't found anything else even close to it or like it. And it inspired us to basically abandon the quote-unquote American dream model and take off into the woods. And these woods it's 80 total acres. It's been in our family for pretty damn close to 100 years now. It's divided now into 4 different families. When we got here, there was nothing hardly except for a little cabin that we hooked our utilities off to. And you might be able to see it behind me here. You see the roof of it. That is my great uncle. He's the last living of all of the old family. So this was my great-great-grandfather's land. And then they lost it to the bank at one point. And after my grandfather got back from World War II, he bought it back from the bank or paid it off and bought it back from the bank. And it's been in the family ever since. But if you see this road behind me here, that road is the road that we had cut in. There is a main road back behind me there, and that main road, well, it's just a little gravel road really, and that was where we used to enter. And we moved down here in a coach bus, an old Greyhound bus that we converted out into a livable space. And at the time, our daughters would have been 4.5 and about 5 and 2.5, something like that. And this was our landing spot. We called this space right here we still affectionately refer to it as the campground, because this was not where we intended to build our homestead. this was just the campsite. And it's a beautiful site. It's here in the tall pines of North Alabama. But it looked very different 12 years ago, 13 years ago. There was a lot less tree cover, a lot less greenery. And right here where I'm standing, this little site is right where the bus was parked. And my brother eventually joined us, well, really like about 6 months later. And if you see that mound right there, right off the tip of my finger, that mound there was nothing on it. And my brother used to sit there and play guitar because his bus, an old school bus, which we still have, the old school bus was parked right there. And this was where we started our journey, right here. And from here, I'll take y'all down, but I think it's just to get a feel of what it was like during that 2.5 years. The first year, we showered outdoors, and we showered outdoors right underneath those trees. That we had a little shower tent that did not have a top on it. We had a 5-gallon gravity-fed bucket system, basically. We would heat water up on a turkey fryer, and that was our hot water. It didn't matter what time of year. That was the first time in my life I ever experienced 10 full days of rain without it ever fully stopping raining. And it was probably right about 40 degrees. It was in January, and it was simultaneously like the most miserable and also like one of those moments where you go, hey man, if we can make it through this, we can make it all right. But my wife built a little building, which is now our goat house. And that little building was off the edge of the bus. And the bus we did not build a bathroom in the bus. There was all the space that we had was when we only had a little under 375 square feet total to work with. So we didn't want to waste any of that space on a bathroom. We were interested in composting toilets, and we got our beginning with the whole composting toilet journey right behind me in this little building that I'll eventually show y'all. And that actually, we used the little building. The girls did that until we moved. And then we had a shed. Well, I was going to show you the shed, which still stands. I'm about to take it down here. But the shed doubled as our overflow storage space and as a bathroom for a little bit of time. And then eventually we moved down the hill. And we moved down the hill because my wife became pregnant with our first son, our third child, but our first son. And because of these books, we really wanted to have him at home. And so we knew we weren't going to fit a new baby in a bus, and we needed a cabin. So we ended up in a cabin, and we get into the cabin by selling the bus to an adventurous and maybe dead young couple from Colorado. They bought our bus, and God bless them. They had a dream, not really any practical experience in anything that they were going to do, but they had the stones to make it happen, so I applaud them. But I don't know if they died in that bus, because it definitely wasn't made for Colorado winters. But I've also got 2 little boys picking berries with me, so I have to collect these children, and I'll be right back. All right, I've collected the cats, also known as children, herding them. So back to the idea of what it looks like, being sovereign, knowing what mushrooms you can pick. That's something that adds to your sovereignty. It's food sovereignty. Knowing what berries, which is what my boys are doing. It's picking dewberries, because it's something that we do. But being in nature more than being on the grid in the matrix is definitely sovereign, because the world that we exist in is an artificial matrix. It's an overlay over God's creation, and that overlay largely distracts and distorts and divides us from one another and ultimately from creation. And I think that the more we can do to get ourselves back into some kind of touch with nature, we'll stop being so sick. We have proven that. It's not that we don't get sick. We do. But the things that we get sick with is all remedied from things that are growing all around us. And that's something that we have taken a lot of time and effort into learning. It's something that my kids know. I love running around or walking around, and while the kids run around and pick things that they know are good for them and play games that are in the real life, not necessarily on screens. Not that they don't get screen time, they get more than I would like. That's for sure. Yes, and we're going to build a dream house. That is definitely the plan. And as we walk our way to where our actual homestead site is, I want to discuss this because as AI clearly becomes the new way forward for the artificial matrix, I really think that we're going to be walking or running headlong into... It's okay, buddy. We're going to be running headlong into some strange duality, even in AI. I call it Autobots versus the Decepticons. Because... Yes, sir. Because there are two primary ways that AI is designed. One is open source code, and the other is a closed source code. And I know that's not the technical name for it, but my elementary understanding of it is that one has the ability to read its code and know why it comes to the decisions that it does, making it a lot more organic and a lot easier for it to have a total view. And the other, the closed source, really gets all of its base understanding from its programmers and its programming. And this is why I think the fear of AI is very warranted, because it gets all of its input from human interaction. Well, look around at the world, y'all. It's a pretty fucked up place. And if that's the brand of humanity that is programming AI, what do we expect is going to come from these closed systems? And the closed systems are primarily the ones that are running military applications, that will be running government applications. He went straight ahead, sir. And that are the ones that will be the central authority. They will replace lawyers and judges. You have a new walking stick for me? Thank you. They will replace everything within the fake overlay. And that's not a theory. That's a $500 billion investment called Stargate, that they openly speak about. And so we could wring our hands over all of this, but the fact of the matter is, it's coming. Short some global catastrophe, which isn't outside of the realm of possibility, but short of some global catastrophe turning it all off, that is already here. It's a done deal, if you will. So this is one way to break free of that. And if I've learned anything from this journey, it's that there is no such thing as true self-sufficiency. It takes a community. I don't care how much off-grid stuff you have. If you can't repair your solar panels or your batteries or manufacture all of those things that keep you, quote unquote, off grid and self-sufficient, then you're neither of those things. You're just less reliant. So I think that skills, you know, that were once pretty common, like growing food, sourcing water, filtering water, natural remedies for various things that happen, you know, skills that apply no matter what. Like, you know, even if the robots took over, I believe that, well, I don't believe that. I see two distinct civilizations, and I've talked about that a lot on this channel already. But those two civilizations are occurring. One with people who think more like me, and another that's just going to run right into whatever is set for them to do, just like they did in 2020. And it used to really bother me, and now it is what it is. I continue to collect people like me, and so we're building a network of like-minded people who are capable and willing to help one another. And so that's the plan. At least that's our bug in plan. I'm not going anywhere. There's no way in hell I'll leave this land ever. Even if I'm forced off of it, then I'll die on it if that's the case. But I don't see that in our future. I don't. But as we get to the house, when we get up near the house, I'll show you how we laid things out. Because one of the parts about growing food is it's not just about gardening. It's about establishing what is commonly referred to as like a food forest. So we've planted a lot of different things, and we're fortunate enough to have tons of wild berries that you couldn't pick all of the blackberries that grow here on the land. You couldn't pick all of the persimmons that grow here on the land. As I say that, I mean, there's already just a small little tidbit of wild blackberries that will be ready in the next few weeks. That's what my boys were doing. This is one of our favorite times of the year because it starts with mulberries and goes to dewberries and then blackberries and blueberries, and then the garden starts producing really good mushrooms. Because of all the rain, we've had a ton of chanterelles growing. That's what these guys are. These are smooth chanterelles. One of the most delicious edible mushrooms, in my opinion. Far better than a morel, but that's just my opinion. That's the old bus. The old school bus. Not ours. That's the one that my brother lived in. This is my brother's plot. My brother is, for all intents and purposes, playing the Matrix game. He's under no illusions. He wants to be a musician. He is a musician. He doesn't want to be. He is a musician. And he's playing in the big city where people go to see music. And I can't blame him one bit. And I don't. But he's got a space here. So that's his backup plan while we establish. We're getting there because I hear the chickens. One thing I've also learned about homesteading is it's a never-ending process. It's always in process. So some people are very organized and very, everything is just so and put the way everything has its place. We try to be that way, but it doesn't always work out. So, sometimes it looks a little chaotic. But I'm okay with that too. My wife likes to acquire all kinds of useful stuff. And that useful stuff a lot of times ends up in a pile. Not always the most organized of piles, but a pile nonetheless, and that's okay too. So, as you see, this is our useful stuff barn. It's got a lot of windows and old metal we took down a couple of old barns that had some of the best timber in it that I've ever seen. Best boards, rather. They don't make wood like that anymore. And that's actually what this building was built out of. Those boards are close to 100 years old themselves. But, so we're getting into the start of our actual homestead. I'm gonna flip the camera around, you don't have to see me, and just kind of show you around. All right, so one of the things that we've learned, again, is like what produces what. And I'm gonna show you what these are. These are actually baby grapes. That's what these are. They're muscadines. Muscadine grapes are native to this region of the southeast. They're very sweet. They ripen right about the end of August. And this whole little spot here, this is all muscadines. And it will produce far more than we could eat. And you can make a little wine out of it if that's your thing, and it's kind of my thing. And as we get around, so we set up things, we carved out the natural forest into little quadrants, if you will. This is my wife's potato bed. She's got potatoes that are actually starting to come up through there. And the reason that we put the cloth down is to keep our chickens out of it, because otherwise there's no such thing as a garden without it being scratched up, dug up, pecked through. At least not for us. And you'd say, well, why don't you keep your chickens in a pen? Well, I'll show you. We built them a huge, beautiful pen, but they just get out of it. Chicken tractors. That's the way to do that, y'all. Another thing, right here. These are Jerusalem artichokes. Jerusalem artichokes. I call them fartichokes. I know, childish, but that's what they do to you. Excellent source of food. And once you plant them, you better plant them where you want them, because they'll never leave. They're beautiful sunflower-like flowers that bloom in the end of summer. And then at the bottom of them, you dig them up, and the rhizome is kind of like a potato. Another thing that I've done a lot of planting of is hazelnuts. That's what these guys are behind me. Hazelnut bushes. I have 2 main bushes will produce more hazelnuts than we could possibly shell. And if I had found a better way to do it, we could probably sell hazelnuts, because I planted hazelnuts all over the place. Another thing is peach tree. This guy back here behind us. And I've definitely got a bunch of peaches this year. Here's them. You can kind of see where they're at, what stage they're at. They're still a little in green, but they're getting there. This is part of our cabin, all kind of hidden in the woods, if you will. I'm going to just give you kind of get in the tour. Back behind us, this brick foundation is going to be the future kitchen. Unfortunately, we have a fungus that has taken most of the timber trees. Well, I wouldn't say most of them, but more than 50% of them in the area. People are cutting their timber like crazy right now because this fungus is taking out the trees. Well, in my opinion, that's a function of nature. It could have something to do with the chemtrails. It could have something to do with monoculture tree planting, because the type of pine, it's a loblolly pine that's not native to the upper end of this, to the Appalachian mountain region, which is where I kind of am. It's more of a lowland tree, but they grow straight and fast and tall, and that's why people plant them. In my opinion, it's not the greatest of investments, but you can make some money from it if that's your thing. That's a matrix mindset. Land as real estate, land as a investment. No, this land is to get acquainted with us and us with it, to live on it, to know the trees in it. I don't know, that seems weird to more matrix minded people, but everything is sentient, including trees. That's a rabbit hole if you want to go down that, but it is. It's true nonetheless, scientifically proven, if science still holds water to you. Science as a method does to me. But the garden, so this is something that has been a labor of love for me. I personally have really enjoyed the gardening process, and this is definitely the best every year it gets better and better. But this is, so far, this is my best garden. So just to give you an idea of the vision, is this little shed here behind us, that is water collection. And from that, this, what is it, 12 by 8 little shed, I've got a 300-gallon tank. Yeah, sorry, the goats know that it's time for them to get let out. I got a 300-gallon tank of water here that we filled up in 3 days. One thing we are not short on in this region is rain. So it's pretty easy to collect. I have multiple sources of water. We have a creek, we have a spring, and we have rainwater. And there is the county water, which we use for like cleaning cars. And as a backup in the worst case scenario. I have chosen raised bed gardens. I've done the in-ground thing. For me, the raised beds are just the easiest to work. But, you know, we've got peppers going on. I've got cucumbers in the teepee back there. There's turnips next to the cucumbers. If you notice, everything has got wire on it. And you might ask yourself, why is that? Well, that's because our damn chickens get in the garden. And I love them because they get a lot of eggs, but they also would destroy my garden. Tomatoes are doing good. I've got watermelons underneath the black tarp, pole beans, which will climb the fence, bush beans, which are just about to start to produce, zucchini, which I'm hit and miss with zucchini. This year I have yet to have a female flower. They're all male flowers so far. But, you know, we'll see. Yellow squash. And my wife does a little bit of what I call guerrilla gardening. You just never really know what's going on in there, but she does. And hers is chicken proofed. Mine's not. Food forest. Yeah, so the other part of that. Here, pear tree. The pear tree is suffering from a little bit of fire blight, which unfortunately is, in my opinion, well, not in my opinion, I know this to be true. The big part of that is Bradford pear trees, which are a GMO abomination, hybrid crap tree. The worst thing you could ever plant or grow, because they, for one, they don't produce a fruit. They crossbreed with native pear trees, and then those pear trees don't produce fruit. They produce these horrible long spiky spines, and they harbor fire blight. And once fire blight gets in the trees, it's really hard to deal with them. These loud and somewhat annoying creatures are ready to be let out, but they do a fabulous job clearing, and that's their job. And they're about to be moved. See that little yellow house? That was our little girl's OG bathroom. Now it's a goat shed. I'm gonna let these goats out and they'll be a lot quieter. So that's what they want. It's let the goats out time, and they know it. But you see, we have lots of pears growing. One thing about these particular variety of pears, they produce tons of them. Big, delicious pears. All right, you knuckleheads. Stay out of the apple trees, will you? Out they go. As we go around, so I have Japanese persimmons here. That's what's going on in this little guy. Apple trees down here. Although these were given to me. These apple trees, they are Honeycrisp. Not a native apple here. Probably not going to make it, but because they were gifts, I'm going to, we'll run them out and see how they go. These other are a Golden Delicious. I'm going to get what's called Dixie Crunch, and Dixie Crunch it's an heirloom tree. It may not have always been called that, but it is an heirloom to the area. I've got another peach tree here going. We've got blueberries down on the bottom. I've got a whole, I just planted 20-something blueberries this year. So in a few years, we'll have tons and tons of blueberries. Blackberries galore. Doesn't look like, you know, maybe it's hard to see in there, but there's tons of blackberries, tons of blackberries. Oh, look. My first blackberry of the season. Get to share it with me. Dude, so awesome. Chestnuts. I got chestnut trees. This one has taken a beating from the goats. Well, it's not nearly as big as the others, but it's getting there. Kids and Orby guns. I think that I'll know that we're okay when kids don't come boys don't come pre-programmed to play war games, because that's definitely something they came programmed with. Anyway, funny how the field does that, isn't it? Figs. Got a couple of fig trees. Figs have been kind of tricky for me. That fig tree was nice and big, and then I don't think it got too cold. But then I have also gorilla grown blueberry bushes kind of all over the place. Originally, I thought that I would be able to keep this area clear and clean. Not so much. It's like a jungle here in the summer, as you can tell. And it's really hard. There's a creek. You can't see it, but there's a creek like 20 feet this way. And this area here just stays too wet and growing. But if you can see that, I have lots of blueberries. Lots of blueberries. And there's a whole line of those same blueberry bushes down this way. This was the original, so it's hard to believe, but only 5 short years ago, this was a whole area. It was about a 25 by 50. This was an in-ground garden. This was our first garden, and this is where I learned a lot of stuff about growing down here. And I didn't grow a lot of stuff, put it that way. But I'm okay with that. So, as we keep moving on up here, I have to keep an eye on these goats, because I've got them out and they're naughty. But they're very useful. And they're also simultaneously sweet, so I don't, I've got another Japanese persimmon. I've got 3 of them. They grow like, it looks like a tomato on the tree. But they're great. Fantastic eating. You can do all kinds of stuff with them. And we also have the American persimmons, which are native here. We have tons of them. And they grow a fruit about this bigger, about the size of this mushroom, actually, and about the same color. I've got sassafras, which if you have never had the pleasure of eating, it's delicious. It tastes like Fruity Pebbles. Kind of like melts in your mouth. Also, the root of, you can make all kinds of cool stuff. It's what root beer originally originated from. We've got that. What else do we have? We have tons of wild blueberries that I've cultivated to little areas of them to stay. And we also have these things called June berries, which ironically don't actually produce in June. I don't know why they got that or where that name comes from, but they're just starting to form. That's what these little guys, these little flowers are, June berries. We have cactus fruit from prickly pear cactus. That's what the yellow flowers, you can see on the cacti. That's what the yellow flowers are. And you heard my little guy talk about, why has he just chucked a frisbee at me? You heard the little guy talk about a dream house. Yes, we're going to build a dream house. What are we going to build it out of? Build it out of cob. This structure is cob Cob is a mixture. It's kind of like adobe. It's a mixture of sand and clay and straw and water. This is, we call it the bathhouse because that's the plan, is for it to be like a spa, if you will. We keep wrestling with how to roof it. That's been one of the things that held us up with it. We've been working on it for longer than I care to admit. But now we're to a place where we can teach Cobb and run workshops with Cobb. And that's how the dream house, that's the plan anyway, is the dream house will be built in workshops. And the dream house, which is difficult to tell because I had cleared, so if you see this pile of stone behind me, but I had cleared 3 terraces. But if you don't keep those terraces clean, well, they quickly grow. Especially when you're getting about, this week we probably got about 5.5 inches of rain just in the week alone. So it's been abnormally wet. But I want to keep going around and just showing the idea of food foresting, because I have been very diligent about how we plant things and where we plant things, because my idea is that you should be able to walk, well, not necessarily, it's not mine per se, but the idea is that you should be able to walk anywhere on the property or anywhere in our little space of love and find something to eat. And without having to baby it or spray it with pesticides or, you know, any of the numerous things that the modern agriculture system would lead you to believe you must do. This is a horizontal beehive behind us. Something that we just found last year to be like one of our favorite foods ever is mulberries, red mulberries specifically, and they're native here. And I just learned how to clone the tree, so I'm going to be making cuttings of this tree because they grow in male and female, and the males produce flower and the females produce the berries. But if you'll see, like, this is not the ripest variety of one, but they're, oh dude, they're so good. They really are like my favorite. They're everybody's favorite thing. Now that I'm down here, I'm sorry, I'm gonna pick a few. See, they get like, you gotta beat the bugs to, or the birds to them. They kind of taste like a cherry, like a dark cherry met a blackberry. They're so good though. Make some of the best jam. Let's turn your fingers red. But they're delicious. My kids love them. So, next, we'll go down here. Everything is very laid out like labyrinthy, because we want to keep as much of our natural stuff going on as possible. Lots of ferns. I love that. I've got hazelnuts all along in here. We'll go down to the creek. It's a small creek. It's not always wet. Come July and August, things will get pretty droughty around here. And fighter jet. We're close to close to the military industrial complex. Close enough. Just out of Huntsville. Huntsville is the center of the technocracy around here anyway. But running water. That little hole down there is about, it's about 4 feet deep, 3.5, 4 feet deep. It's just about over the little guy's head. He plays in it. We all play in it. It's beautiful. It's clean, clear, cold, very cold. But eventually, this whole little area here, this naturally sort of low area, we're gonna turn into a pond, small pond. Just enough that I could put I don't know, some sunfish in. We want a big pond, roughly an acre pond in the back end of the property, and we'll get there when we get there. But we have a lot of things that we want to do, and we may not accomplish them all. But there's nothing wrong with talking about them and visualizing them, because if I've learned anything about all this, a squirrel, I hear him. We have a squirrel that comes down here and he won't go to the ground because the dogs would eat him. But he hangs out. He hangs out down swing set. Dome. Kids get the dome. Also another pear tree, but this one, it's not the best. I didn't have a lot of forethought on this one. I planted this pear down here thinking kids would have pears down where they play, but it's just not really thriving, and that's okay. We also used to have chickens down here, but they were too far from the house and too close to water. And we learned that predators run the waterways. So as you can see behind me, it's hard to tell. It was an old chicken enclosure. And now it's I'll tell you one thing. My wife definitely knows how to fortify a chicken enclosure, because I couldn't take that down even if I wanted to. And I've tried. So this swing is arguably the most sought after thing between the boys, because I can push them like, I don't know, 10 plus feet off the ground with it. So they feel like they're flying, I guess. Now we're coming back up around the Cobb building. This tree here is a choke cherry, but it did not produce a lot of cherries this year. It's been hit or miss with some of these cherries, and they're also getting a blight. So I'm not really sure. I've got another couple of chestnut trees in here, right there, that are growing. We have many, I don't even know how many different kinds of oak trees down here. Tons, but I try to leave as many as I can on the property. Now this behind me is the main chicken enclosure. It doesn't keep them in. There's the flock of Australorps, they stay in. But the other random chickens, they do not stay in. I built that building out of barnwood from a barn that I took down. Those roosters, they're afraid of me because I frequently cull the roosters and they end up in the freezer. And I feel really good about it. But they know that when I come around, they're either going to get fed or they're going to get shot. But it's the truth. Oak leaf hydrangeas. If you can see, there's such a beautiful flower. Amazing smelling. Gosh, so amazing. Back to the Cobb building. Coming back around. Yep. So I do very little. I do mow, but I do very little mowing. If you didn't, it would be there would just be ticks and God knows what everywhere. So you got to do a little bit, but I didn't plant any of this grass. It's just grass that grew. A goat trying to get into the dog feed can. Stay out of there, you goober. What's the matter with you? And then we're going to come around to also more muscadines. Trellis those out. It was a big producing one. Front up here we have more of the Jerusalem artichokes. I've got yucca, the root, very good. You can do all kinds of stuff with that. There's the front of the chicken barn. We've got loads and loads and loads of garlic growing up along the front. Eventually, I want this to all be garlic. That's the plan. as we get back around. Almost all the way through. See, these are the roaming birds. And this fenced area here are all blueberries. And it's very difficult to make them out because, well, you know, things have come up in its place. But if you can see the orange tagged, I've got 25, if I remember right. And they're just shoots from the existing blueberries, but you give them 3 or 4 years and they'll be nice and tall. And in 5 years, we'll have more blueberries than we could possibly use. So that's cool. This is the Cobb outhouse. I'm gonna spin you guys around. Cobb outhouse. Super cool. It's my wife's doing. She's very artistic, as you can tell. Again, it's all made out of the same, it's adobe. This is going to be a future goat enclosure. That's what this building is, what we put it up for. As you can tell, all that insanity back here, it's going to look like the area that the goats were in probably about 2 years. It'll take them to really get it all the way down. But this will be the next area that we clear up, and that will kind of tie in. I may eventually put like a pole barn up or something like that. And get rid of that tent shack back there. It's served a really good purpose. It's just the weather here is really hard on them. And how we're gonna get there is one of the good things about the timber blight is that, well, I'm cutting timber. We're making boards. I have a buddy with a sawmill, and I'm going to preempt the blight this year myself. I'm just going to cut the trees that are big enough to make boards out of, and that's how we're going to add on to our place. This is my wife's little garden bed, and yes, the boys were playing something with a bunch of pots. So, you know, yeah, there's some shit in the yard, but I don't feel any certain way about it. So that's really pretty much the grand tour. Oh wait, more muscadines. We have food all around us, like all around us. Do we live exclusively off what we grow? No, we do not. No, we do not. But more and more, we're relying on either things that we grow, produce, hunt, fish, or whatever for, and or we get it from a local producer. And because back in the day, I was a professional chef, I still do cook some. I have established some pretty good contacts of people who are producing, and that's, again, it's all about community, in my opinion. And that's what we're trying to do, is build a community of people who think like us and who are willing to live, I don't know, different than the Matrix would push you to live. So that's it. That's my little tour of our humble beginnings and our humble homestead. It's got a long way to go. We are not super self-sufficient. We are off the grid. We rely heavily on a generator and some solar. So I'm under no illusions. I don't need to pretend that we're something that we're not. I would eventually like to have solar, not to rely necessarily on. I would love to have air conditioning. I'm not gonna lie. Come July and August, it's freaking hot here, man, and can get a little miserable at times. But that's my trade-off. It's about 2.5 months of what we call the dog days of summer, and I will definitely take some video of what we do to beat the heat, because it is beautiful. This place is so beautiful. This state is so beautiful, and we are so fortunate that it is what it is, and that it also carries a stigma. This guy, he's one of our best additions. This is Brutus. He's our Great Pyrenees / Anatolian Shepherd mix. He's only 8 months, but he is such a good boy. He really is. He's going to be an excellent addition to the homestead. Got to have guardian dogs because we do have coyotes and all kinds of things that like to eat stuff. Feral dogs, a lot of feral dogs down here, unfortunately. That's by far the biggest danger is the feral dogs, in my opinion, much more than coyotes or anything else like that, or at least where we live. So we like to have these guys, and they're good with the kids. This guy here, though, is like, gosh, him and his mom. The mother she's the full-bred Pyrenees. I've never had dogs that are as good. They're smart, as capable. They're just awesome dogs. I will never be without them again, that's for sure. So, that's it. That's all. I'm going to sign off. I'm going to conclude this by saying this is my version of sovereignty. And the reason I say we're pretty sovereign here is because ultimately we could do, if we had to, if shit really hit the fan, I've got food, I've got water, and I've got shelter. And it's paid off. And it's out of the government matrix. And no, it wouldn't stop a tank from rolling up my driveway. But I got a plan for that too. So, I would love to see more people doing this, and to see how you do it, and how you build communities, and how you guys how we could all network. That would be awesome. That's the vision. Well, until the next time, see you later. Love y'all.